Dance with me, or I lose my patience. The golden chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floor of the Grand Palazzo Ballroom. Tonight was the annual charity gala, where the city's elite gathered to show off their wealth and make deals behind champagne glasses. Among the crowd of politicians, business owners, and socialites, one man commanded attention without saying a word. Vincent Romano stood at the edge of the dance floor, his dark eyes scanning the room like a predator watching his territory. At 35, he was the youngest mafia boss the Romano family had ever known, and also the most feared. His black suit was perfectly tailored, his dark hair slicked back, and his presence alone made conversation stop mid-sentence. Vincent wasn't here for charity. He was here for business, and more importantly, he was here for her. Across the room, near the orchestra, stood Isabella Chen. She was 28 years old, with long black hair that caught the light when she moved, and she wore a red dress that made every man in the room steal glances. Isabella was the daughter of Judge Chen, one of the few honest judges left in the city. She was also a successful lawyer who had never lost a case, and Vincent had been watching her for months. What Isabella didn't know was that her father owed Vincent a very large debt. Judge Chen had made some poor gambling choices, and now he owed the Romano family $3 million. Vincent could have collected this debt in many violent ways, but he had a different plan. He wanted Isabella. Vincent had tried the usual approaches. He sent flowers to her law office. She threw them in the trash. He sent expensive jewelry to her apartment. She returned it the next day. He even tried to approach her at a coffee shop, but she saw right through his charm and walked away. Isabella Chen was not impressed by money, power, or fear. This only made Vincent want her more. Tonight would be different. Tonight, he would make her an offer she couldn't refuse. Vincent walked through the crowd, and people stepped aside without him having to ask. Everyone knew who he was. Business owners nodded respectfully, hoping to stay on his good side. Politicians smiled nervously, remembering the favors they owed him. Young women tried to catch his eye, but Vincent only looked at one person. Isabella was talking to her friend Sarah when she felt someone watching her. She turned around and saw Vincent approaching. Her heart started beating faster, not from attraction, but from fear. She knew exactly who Vincent Romano was, and she knew her father had been acting strange lately. "Miss Chen," Vincent said, stopping in front of her. His voice was deep and smooth, like expensive whiskey. "You look beautiful tonight." "Mr. Romano," Isabella replied coolly. "I wasn't expecting to see you at a charity event." "I believe in giving back to the community," Vincent said with a slight smile. "May I have this dance?" Isabella looked around the room. Everyone was watching them. She could feel the tension in the air. "I don't think that would be appropriate." Vincent's smile faded slightly. He leaned closer, so only she could hear him. "Isabella, we need to talk. Your father's situation has become quite serious." Isabella's blood turned cold. She had suspected her father was in some kind of trouble, but hearing it confirmed by Vincent Romano made it real. "What are you talking about?" "Dance with me, and I'll explain everything," Vincent said, extending his hand. "Or we can discuss your father's $3 million debt right here in front of all these people." Isabella stared at his hand like it was a snake. She knew she had no choice. If Vincent wanted to cause a scene, he could destroy her father's reputation and career in minutes. Every lawyer in the room would hear about Judge Chen's gambling problem by morning. "One dance," she said quietly, taking his hand. Vincent led her onto the dance floor, and immediately, every other couple stopped dancing. The orchestra continued playing, but all eyes were on Vincent Romano and Isabella Chen. Vincent placed one hand on her waist and took her other hand in his. They began to move slowly to the music. "My father is a good man," Isabella whispered as they danced. "Whatever trouble he's in, I'm sure we can work something out." "Your father owes my family $3 million, Vincent said quietly, spinning her gently. He's been gambling at our casino for 6 months. We gave him credit because we respect his position, but that respect has limits. Isabella felt sick. $3 million was more money than her family would ever have. There has to be another way to handle this. There is, Vincent said, pulling her closer as the music swelled. Marry me. Isabella almost stopped dancing. What did you just say? You heard me perfectly, Vincent said, his dark eyes locked on hers. Marry me, and your father's debt disappears. You'll have everything you could ever want. Money, protection, respect. Respect? Isabella laughed bitterly. You think I would respect myself for marrying a criminal? Vincent's grip on her hand tightened slightly. I prefer the term businessman. You can call yourself whatever you want, but I know what you really are, Isabella said. And I would rather die than marry you. The music stopped, but Vincent didn't let her go. Around them, the other guests pretended to start new conversations, but everyone was still watching. Vincent looked at Isabella with something that might have been admiration. You have spirit, he said. I like that. But you should know something about me, Isabella. I always get what I want. Not this time, she said, trying to pull away from him. Vincent held her for another moment, then slowly released her hands. Think about my offer. You have 1 week to decide. After that, I'll collect your father's debt in other ways. Isabella wanted to slap him right there in front of everyone, but she forced herself to stay calm. I need to go. Of course, Vincent said, stepping back with a slight bow. Thank you for the dance. Isabella walked quickly toward the exit, her red dress flowing behind her. Vincent watched her go, admiring the way she held her head high even though he had just threatened her entire family. Most people begged or cried when he made them offers they couldn't refuse. Isabella Chen had looked him in the eye and said no. This made Vincent want her even more. As Isabella reached the exit, her friend Sarah caught up with her. Isabella, wait. What did he say to you? I can't talk about it here, Isabella said, looking back at the ballroom. Vincent was still standing on the dance floor, watching her. I need to go home and think. Outside the Grand Palazzo, Isabella stood in the cool night air, trying to calm down. Her father was in serious trouble, and she was the only one who could save him. But the price Vincent Romano was asking was impossible to pay. Isabella had worked her entire life to become independent. She had graduated at the top of her law school class. She had built a successful career helping people fight against corruption and injustice. The idea of marrying a mafia boss went against everything she believed in. But Vincent was right about one thing. If her father couldn't pay his debt, Vincent would collect it in ways that would destroy her family. Isabella had heard stories about what happened to people who owed money to the Romano family. Some disappeared completely. Others were found floating in the harbor. As she waited for her taxi, Isabella made a decision. She wouldn't marry Vincent Romano, but she wouldn't give up either. She was a lawyer, and lawyers found solutions to impossible problems. She would find a way to save her father without selling her soul to the devil. What Isabella didn't know was that Vincent had been planning this moment for months. He had watched her win case after case in court. He had seen her fight for justice even when it put her own career at risk. He had fallen in love with her strength, her intelligence, and her refusal to be intimidated. Vincent Romano was a man who could have any woman he wanted, but he only wanted the one woman who would never want him back. This had started as a business arrangement, but somewhere along the way, it had become much more personal. Back inside the ballroom, Vincent accepted congratulations and handshakes from various guests, but his mind was entirely focused on Isabella Chen. He had given her a week to decide, but he knew she would try to find another way out. He respected that about her, but it wouldn't change the outcome. Vincent Romano always got what he wanted, and what he wanted was Isabella Chen. The only question was whether she would come to him willingly, or whether he would have to take more serious action. As the evening continued, Vincent made his usual rounds, collecting payments, making threats disguised as friendly conversation, and building the network of fear and respect that kept his empire running. But every few minutes, his thoughts returned to the woman in the red dress who had danced with him and then walked away. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. Vincent had shown Isabella his hand, and now it was time to see how she would play hers. He was looking forward to it. After all, Vincent Romano had never met a challenge he couldn't overcome, and Isabella Chen would not be the first.
#dance with me, or I lose my patience, continued. Isabella spent the next 3 days diving into every law book she could find, searching for a legal way to protect her father from Vincent Romano's demands. She worked 18-hour days at her law office, drinking coffee and taking notes until her eyes burned. But the more she researched, the more hopeless the situation became. Vincent Romano was too smart to leave evidence of illegal activities. His casino was completely legal, and her father had signed real contracts for the money he borrowed. In the eyes of the law, this was simply a debt collection case. The fact that Vincent was a known mafia boss didn't matter if Isabella couldn't prove he had done anything illegal. On Thursday morning, Isabella was sitting in her office when her secretary knocked on the door. "Miss Chen, there's a delivery for you." Isabella looked up from her papers, exhausted and frustrated. "I didn't order anything." "It's from Romano Industries," her secretary said nervously. Isabella's heart sank. Romano Industries was Vincent's legitimate business front, a company that owned restaurants, hotels, and construction projects throughout the city. Everyone knew it was just a way for Vincent to launder money from his illegal activities, but again, no one could prove it. "Bring it in," Isabella said with a sigh. Her secretary carried in a large white box tied with a red ribbon. After the secretary left, Isabella stared at the box for several minutes before opening it. Inside was the most beautiful wedding dress she had ever seen. It was made of pure white silk with delicate lace details, and it looked like it had cost more than Isabella made in 6 months. At the bottom of the box was a handwritten note, "For our wedding. I had it made in your size. Vincent." Isabella felt sick. Vincent was so confident that she would marry him that he had already ordered her wedding dress. The expensive silk felt like chains in her hands. She threw the dress back into the box and closed the lid, but she couldn't stop thinking about how beautiful it was. That afternoon, Isabella went to visit her father at the courthouse. Judge Chen was in his office, signing papers, when Isabella knocked on his door. She hadn't told him about Vincent's proposal yet, hoping she could find another solution first. "Isabella, sweetheart," Judge Chen said, looking up with tired eyes. "What brings you by?" Isabella sat down across from his desk and studied her father's face. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His usually perfect hair was messy, and his hands shook slightly as he signed documents. "Dad, we need to talk," Isabella said gently. "About your gambling problem." Judge Chen's face went white. He put down his pen and leaned back in his chair. "How did you find out?" "Vincent Romano told me," Isabella said. "At the charity gala. He said you owe his family $3 million. Judge Chen closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. "Isabella, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to get involved in this mess." "Tell me how it started," Isabella said. Judge Chen was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he began to speak. "Your mother's medical bills were so expensive before she died. Even with insurance, we were drowning in debt. I went to Romano's casino just once, thinking I could win enough to pay off the hospital." Isabella felt her heart breaking. Her mother had died 2 years ago after a long battle with cancer, and Isabella knew the medical bills had been enormous. "At first, I did win," Judge Chen continued. "I won enough to pay off all the medical debt, plus extra. But then I kept playing, thinking I could win even more. Before I knew it, I had lost everything I won, plus money I didn't have." "Why didn't you come to me for help?" Isabella asked. "We could have figured something out together." "Because you had already done so much," Judge Chen said sadly. "You took care of your mother during her illness. You helped with the medical bills. You were working day and night to support us while building your career. I couldn't ask you for more. Isabella reached across the desk and took her father's hand. Dad, Vincent Romano asked me to marry him. He said if I do, he'll cancel your debt. Judge Chen's eyes went wide with horror. Isabella, no. I won't let you sacrifice your life for my mistakes. What choice do we have? Isabella asked. You don't have $3 million, and I certainly don't either. We'll find another way, Judge Chen said firmly. I'll sell the house. I'll sell everything I own. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to. Dad, even if you sold everything and worked for the rest of your life, you couldn't pay back $3 million, Isabella said. And Vincent Romano isn't the kind of man who accepts payment plans. That evening, Isabella went home to her small apartment and tried to think clearly about her situation. She could marry Vincent and save her father, but spend the rest of her life married to a criminal. She could refuse Vincent's offer and watch her father face whatever terrible consequences Vincent had in mind. Or she could find a third option. Isabella spent Friday researching Vincent Romano himself instead of looking for legal loopholes. She studied newspaper articles, court records, and business documents. She learned that Vincent had taken over the Romano family business when he was only 25, after his father died in a car accident that everyone suspected wasn't really an accident. She discovered that Vincent had 2 younger sisters who lived in Italy, far away from the family business. She found out that he donated anonymously to several children's hospitals and homeless shelters. She read that he had never been married and had no children. Most importantly, she learned that Vincent's biggest weakness was his pride. He had built his reputation on never backing down from a challenge and always getting what he wanted. If Isabella could find a way to make him lose face in front of the other crime families, he might be willing to negotiate. Saturday morning, Isabella made a decision that terrified her. She would go to Vincent's office and make him a counteroffer. Romano Industries occupied an entire floor of one of the tallest buildings in downtown. Isabella took the elevator to the 35th floor, her heart pounding with every number that lit up. The receptionist was a beautiful blonde woman who looked like she belonged in a magazine instead of an office. I'm here to see Mr. Romano, Isabella said. Tell him Isabella Chen is here. The receptionist made a phone call, spoke quietly for a moment, then hung up with a surprised expression. Mr. Romano will see you now. Take the hallway to the right, last door. Isabella walked down a long hallway lined with expensive paintings and thick carpet. Vincent's office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the entire city. Vincent was sitting behind a massive wooden desk, wearing another perfectly tailored suit. Isabella, Vincent said, standing up with a smile. I wasn't expecting to see you until tomorrow. I came to make you a different offer, Isabella said, trying to keep her voice steady. Vincent gestured to a chair across from his desk. Please, sit down. Would you like some coffee? Water? No, thank you, Isabella said, sitting down but keeping her back straight and her chin up. I want to make you a business proposition. Vincent raised an eyebrow and sat back down. I'm listening. I'll work for you for 1 year, Isabella said. As your lawyer. I'll handle all your legal business, make sure your contracts are perfect, represent you in any court cases. In exchange, you cancel my father's debt. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. You want to be my lawyer instead of my wife? That's right, Isabella said. You get my legal expertise, which is worth more than $3 million. My father's debt gets cancelled. Everyone wins. Except that's not what I want, Vincent said softly. I don't need another lawyer, Isabella. I have plenty of lawyers. What I need is a wife. Why? Isabella asked. You could marry any woman in this city. Why does it have to be me? Vincent stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Do you know what it's like to be me, Isabella? Everyone I meet either wants something from me or is terrified of me. Women throw themselves at me because of my money and power, not because of who I am as a person. He turned back to face her. But you're different. You looked me in the eye and said no. You're not impressed by my money or scared of my reputation. You're the first person I've met in years who sees me as just a man instead of a title. Isabella felt a flicker of sympathy for Vincent, but she quickly pushed it away. I understand loneliness, but that doesn't make this right. You can't force someone to love you. I'm not asking you to love me, Vincent said, walking back to his desk. I'm asking you to give me a chance. Marry me for 1 year. If after 1 year you still hate me, I'll give you a divorce and a settlement that will make you rich for the rest of your life. And if I refuse? Isabella asked. Vincent's expression grew cold. Then I collect your father's debt in the traditional way. And Isabella, the traditional way is not pleasant. Isabella stood up, anger flashing in her eyes. You're threatening my family to force me into marriage. How is that different from kidnapping? Because you have a choice, Vincent said calmly. You can say yes and spend 1 year living in luxury while giving me a chance to prove I'm more than you think I am. Or you can say no and watch your father face the consequences of his choices. Isabella stared at Vincent for a long moment. She could see something in his eyes that she hadn't noticed before. Behind the confidence and power, there was loneliness and pain. But that didn't change what he was asking her to do. I need more time to think, Isabella said. You have until tomorrow at midnight, Vincent said. After that, I start collecting your father's debt. Isabella turned and walked toward the door, but Vincent's voice stopped her. Isabella, wait. She turned back to face him. For what it's worth, Vincent said quietly, I would do everything in my power to make you happy. I know you don't believe that right now, but it's true. Isabella left Vincent's office feeling more confused than ever. She had expected to find a monster, but instead she had glimpsed something almost human in Vincent Romano. It didn't change her situation, but it made her decision even harder. That night, Isabella sat in her apartment with the wedding dress box beside her on the couch. Tomorrow she would have to give Vincent her answer, and she still didn't know what she was going to say. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere out there, Vincent Romano was waiting for her decision. In less than 24 hours, Isabella's entire life would change forever, one way or another.